Hello and welcome to Moonknighting. This is the Moon Knight reaction show. I am Paul, your host as always. You may notice I'm alone so far this week, but we thought it was time we had another guest on because we enjoyed having Jed McKay on the first episode, which you can still catch down there in the description. And we wanted another comics writer and someone who hasn't influenced Moon Knight yet, as far as I know, but is going to be influencing Moon Knight soon. So please welcome Erica Schultz. Hello.
Thank you for having me back.
Oh no, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I love it when guests come back, and it's definitely a pleasure to see you. And of course, it wouldn't be a week looking at Moon Knight without my very fine co-host, Liz Jordan. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Doing well. Very excited for this week's discussion.
Okay.
And for our guest, of course.
Yes, I'm really excited to have Erica back on. Erica, if you don't know her work, you definitely should be checking out Bylines in Blood, which is currently running from Aftershock Comics and will be available hopefully in your LCS. It may not be like it seems to be selling out in a lot of places. I'm reading it at the moment. I'm really enjoying it. It's a great series that you've written with Van Jensen and is drawn by Annika, who's a terrific Annika. Sorry, thank you. He's a terrific artist. I'm just really loving the book, Erica. So thank you for getting that out there. And of course, you have a Moon Knight short coming up in Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood. Number three in July.
It comes out literally the first day of San Diego, because San Diego Wednesday is the preview night, so it comes out that day of San Diego Comic-Con.
Awesome. Are you going to be at San Diego this year?
Yes, question mark. I'm planning on being at San Diego. The mask mandates being lifted on planes are making me a little more nervous. But yes, I am planning on being at San Diego. I hope that things continue to go down. Therefore, travel is a little more easy, I guess.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people hoping to see you at San Diego and to catch up with you about your work. Erica, you may remember, came on for The Deadliest Bouquet back when that was a Kickstarter, which was a terrific project. And hopefully we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go into the show. So, Erica, can I ask you first, with your Moon Knight story, without giving away too much, because obviously we're still months away from it.
Yeah.
Is that something, with those sorts of projects, the anthology projects, do Marvel come to you and go, okay, can you give us a sort of 8-page or 10-page story on Moon Knight? Or is it something where you go in and pitch and say, I want to be part of this?
For this particular one, an acquaintance had mentioned, because I've been a Moon Knight fan for many years.
Right.
And I've pitched for Moon Knight miniseries over the years with Marvel. Some got very close to the finish line. And so an acquaintance had mentioned something. Oh, hey, did you know that there's going to be a Moon Knight anthology? And I was like, oh, I didn't know that, but I knew that they had been doing things with like Elektra and other characters. So I reached out to one of my editors at Marvel and I said, hey, I'd really love to pitch for this. I know you're not the person on it, but can you point me in the right direction? And they did. And I reached out directly then to Tom Brevoort, which is a little intimidating, but I'm like, hi, I've written for you before. So he said, sure. Yeah. Let's see what you have. And of course, because I've, pitched Moon Knight before, I had sort of a whole laundry list of different ideas. And it was a 10-pager. So I sort of went through that and I was like, okay, well, what could I condense into 10 pages? And I just gave him, log lines for a couple of things. He liked 2 of them, so I blew those out a little more. And then out of those 2, he chose one. And I'm glad that he chose this one because it focuses on Jake. And I have a special place in my heart for Jake because my dad worked as a New York cabbie So,
wow.
so there's a special place in my heart for Jake. And so I was really excited, and this story focuses on Jake. And then having learned that David Lopez, who I'm a huge fan of from Captain Marvel and JSA and everything, and Catwoman, learned that he was then going to draw it, I was just kind of like, I better not screw this up. The pressure is on.
Right.
But David has done such an amazing job, and yeah, the pages are done, and I've seen them, and I've cried and drooled over them. So I really can't wait for everybody else to take a look at it.
I love those black, white, and red, black, white, and blood anthology books. Though I've been picking a few of those up, like the Wolverine and the Elektra and things. So I'm definitely looking.
There was a Daredevil one too, I believe. They've done a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean they're really great, and the stories, they're consistently good throughout. And the characters kind of all lend themselves very well to that sort of treatment. And I'm definitely looking forward to this. Is it a shame to to kill one of those mini-series almost and have to kind of strip it down so much for a 10-pager, or are you okay with it?
Look, I got bills to pay. I'm okay with anything. But I mean, there are still some of them that, I mean, when I sort of wrote up the log lines, it was kind of apparent that, yeah, it would be really tough to get all of this into a 10-pager. But I was, just sort of throwing anything at the wall to see what would stick. And a lot of times as a freelancer, when you're in that situation, you're in like people pleaser mode, like anything you want, I can give you anything, kind of thing. Cause you want the gig, you want to be able to work on this character, you want to be able to work with this editor. So I still have a lot of those sort of mini series set aside. The one that almost crossed the finish line, it will break my heart if in 10 years I still don't get to make it, but
right.
But this was like a foot in the door with that character, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's like, when you've done the work, does that sometimes kind of, move you, kind of a step ahead toward perhaps working on that character? Or
it does, yes and no. So the first work that I had done with Marvel back in 2014 was sort of a co-project with ABC for one of their TV shows. It was for a show called Revenge. So I thought, I was like, well, I have my foot in the door, but it wasn't really getting your foot in the door because you weren't writing any of the Marvel characters. And then in 2018, I was writing a Daredevil story, but it was really more Misty Knight focused. So after that, I had started pitching a bunch of Daughters of the Dragon, different ideas and things like that. And a lot of times what editors do is they accept a lot of pitches, and then if the senior editor comes to them and says, okay, what do you got for me? That's when they sort of go through and like, okay, well, this was submitted a year ago, but it'll still work. How about this? So it really is kind of a very strange, like nebulous place to be in. It's almost like being like in a bounce house, like you don't quite have the footing. And I've always said, my career is pretty much middle management right now. They know who I am, but I'm not like superstar status, but they recognize me for the most part. So yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to pitch more Moon Knight after this, or I mean, any of those. I mean, I loved when Moon Knight was in Secret Avengers. I thought that was a great run. There's a scene where he's in a helicopter with Beast, and he's he's either like falling asleep or he's like already injured, and so he's like starting to sort of like conk out, and he stabs himself in the leg to wake himself up. And that's when Hank is just like, oh my God, why am I sitting next to this insane person in a helicopter? We're all going to die. I mean, so many people have done so many things with the character. The one thing that I always disagree with is when everybody's like, oh, he's, Marvel's Batman.
Yeah,
I think it's so very different from Marvel's Batman that, for a couple of reasons, but yeah, everybody just looks and sees the money and the gadgets, the Stephen Grant character. but one of the things that I think Moon Knight dealt with that Batman recently has, but not for a very long time, was this idea of having a mental illness. Like, because you got to think about it. There's got to be something a little bit wrong with you if you're dressing up and beating people up in the city in the middle of the night. No matter what you're dressing, there has to be something a little bit wrong with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the fact that Moon Knight's, not from the beginning, because he was always just sort of like the mercenary with the committee, with Jack Russell and that whole thing. But, the idea of you're a little off if this is what you do, that was dealt with and was put in the forefront. Whereas for Batman, it was always, Bruce Wayne is my mask, kind of thing. So I think that Moon Knight kind of had a leg up on Batman on that one, but I'm sure all the Batman fans are going to come after me.
I feel like it's a pretty lazy comparison to make,
Yeah.
and I do think it's as you said about to do with a lot of surface things like the billionaire playboy persona and the gadgets in the suit, but really they are very, very different characters, and as you say, the things they do with Moon Knight. Addressing the mental health stuff is just, it really pulls him so far away from, what they seem to be willing to do with Batman.
Yeah, no, totally. I completely agree.
And I've got to say something that will probably shock our audience, given my proclivities for Batman. I think Moon Knight is a much richer character, potentially.
Oh, yeah.
By and of himself. I mean, I think the world of Batman is more interesting in terms of the Bat family and all that stuff and everything that brings to the character. But I think Moon Knight, by and of himself as a person or persons, however we want to kind of get into that, is a much richer, kind of more pliable and more interesting character. I never thought I would be saying that.
Well, it's on tape, so
yeah.
You can't take it back.
Can't take it back now.
Oh, delete episode. But no, I think you guys are absolutely right. It is a lazy comparison, and it's one that kind of gets on my nerves too.
Well, I think as humans, we want everything to be sort of like dumbed down to like the easiest, quickest boxes. So you had at one point, they were talking about, Iron Man sort of being, the Batman comparison, but
it's just the money. That's really all there is.
It's just the money.
Yeah.
One of the things I have to say about Batman is that, like, one of the things, he's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. He's the worst detective, like, ever. Because if he was the world's greatest detective, then where's the story?
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's something that I was always just kind of like, eh. And I always thought, the stories that focused more on Dick or Tim or even, Jason, I thought that those stories were much richer and more, because they were always sort of like the heart. Well, Dick especially was like the heart to Bruce's sort of, mean persona. And I'm not a huge fan of Damian, so I'm not even going to talk about him. But and Tim definitely had this, like this sort of, just fun, like playing the straight man,
Mm-hmm.
but not like comic relief.
Right. You're talking to somebody who's obsessed with the Robins. I could not,
Tim Seeley would be so happy to hear that.
Well, yeah. I'm loving his Robins miniseries at the moment. Absolutely loving it. So
Liz will be over next week to marry you. So there you go. you
we can just talk about Robins all the time.
Yeah.
But absolutely, he needs the balance of the Robins. The light, to his just sort of grim, nature. Whereas with Moon Knight, he actually, in one character, you kind of get, all of these different sort of personalities, and none of them are quite anywhere near as taciturn as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
So,
Erica, I've got to ask before we get into the sort of nitty gritty of this week's episode, which of course you're more than welcome to join us for.
I think I might.
Yeah. Well, okay. It's it's good.
I do have things to say.
Excellent.
There
excellent.
is a lot.
Do you have a favorite kind of Moon Knight run? I mean, what was it that got you into the character?
I was reading some old Werewolf by Night issues, probably in like the early 2000s, but I think I was first introduced, I think it was in 97. They did a one shot, a Moon Knight 2099 one shot, and I think it was 97 or 98. And I think I read that and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But then I didn't really, delve too deep into the character. And then I had, gone back, you get the quarter bin kind of thing. And I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool. And, seeing some Werewolf by Night. And then, Moon Knight's first appearance, which I think was like 36, 37.
32.
Was it 32? Yeah. Okay.
32.
My bad. I know, I'm such a bad geek girl. And I thought like, wow, this is like a really interesting character. This whole the idea of like the committee, which kind of reminded me of like the Light or like the Illuminati, all that other stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then probably around, I want to say it was like Charlie Houston, that run that I really started, reading up, and I was like, oh, okay, I like this. And I love David Finch's artwork. So that also drew me in. And then I just sort of, sorry. I was going to say, I just kind of kept up.
Yeah, that is kind of, that was considered one of the darkest runs, right? That's
when he cuts
really
off Bushman's face and then he puts it in the mirror, and then Marlene walks in and she's like, what the hell are you doing in the middle of the night wearing a dude's face on his face? That's nasty stuff.
That is grim.
And it does feel like that's something that later runs have kind of slightly distanced themselves from. But the other one.
An interesting thing, though, that later runs I also noticed, like one of the things about Moon Knight was that each one of his personalities, they were all capable people. Like they could all throw a punch.
Sure.
Jake was the former boxer, Mark was the former mercenary, and Steven was, the billionaire playboy, but he could still throw a punch. He was still a capable person. Yeah. One of the things that I think started happening is that I don't know where they came up with this idea that Jake was going to be Travis Bickle. Like Jake is this like psychopath and he's like the worst out of all of them. I was like, no, he's really not.
No.
So, okay. Like, where did that come from? I want to say there was the run that Max Bemis had written more recently. There was this back and forth where they're in the sort of New York subway, and they're in this like the sewers or in the subway or whatever. And Mark is throwing punches with this one character, and Jake steps in, and the guy reads his mind, and he's like, oh, the horrors in your mind, or the worst. And it's like, but that's not Jake.
No.
Like, so
it never has been.
When they started moving toward that, and I see the show is also doing that too.
Maybe someone, I believe it was a comics creator, I can't remember who, tweeted out when this episode of the show dropped, oh wow, this is a lot of build up for a cab driver. And you kind of, okay, I kind of get that attitude. I mean, I'm interested to see. I think they've been really interesting in their handling of Stephen Grant, and I think Mark is kind of as okay. That's we'll get into that.
I'm sorry.
Mark is as advertised. You don't have to apologize. Like I want to hear what you guys think, but Mark is as advertised. Stephen Grant, I think, has actually turned into a character I really like, despite having serious doubts and trepidations, from the get-go.
You're okay with that accent?
I'm not okay with the accent. I don't think it's a great accent.
We've talked about the accent.
I think I'm kind of just used to it now. It just is what it is, and it's not going to get any better. But it ain't going to get any worse. I
don't know. We still got 2 episodes.
That's true.
I'm interested to see what they'll do with Jake, and I admire the commitment to sticking with Stephen, because I genuinely thought what was going to happen is Stephen would be the first episode, and as quickly as possible, they would get rid of him and just bring in Mark, and it would just be all Mark all the time, and then maybe some of the other personalities. But I actually kind of found myself rooting for Stephen, and I think the reason I'm doing that is because he is the underdog. Whereas Mark is the kind of guilt-ridden soldier. So I'm interested to see how they will manifest Jake and what they will do.
Well, he's obviously the psychopath who's killing people.
Very probably, yeah. I mean,
yeah. See, we talked about
Bushman yet, so
right.
No, but I mean, on that cliff.
Oh,
I
sure.
think it was. I think it was episode 3 on that cliff when when Mark comes back into the body, and he has he's talking with Steven, and he's like, "What did you do? It wasn't me." Well, it wasn't me. Who was it?
Yeah. See, now, of course, it seems very likely that it's going to be the Jake Lockley persona. But because they're taking such big swings and like doing such different stuff, we kind of discussed, like, I had a theory that actually maybe it's just Khonshu possessing him, as you see that he can do during that tribunal with the gods, and because of Mark's DID, like, there's a chance he just might not even remember Khonshu possessing him. So there's like other possibilities, but it does sound likely that they're going with the psycho Jake Lockley, which doesn't really resemble most iterations of Jake Lockley in the comics.
But I think it will just be part and parcel of this wider thing they're doing. And I know I'm kind of, this is a weird position for me and Liz to be in, because usually Liz is the cheerleader for these shows, no matter what. And I'm kind of like, no, sorry, I don't think this is working. I don't think that works. And I think this is bad. But I've kind of been now in the position of being the real cheerleader for this one, whereas Liz has been the kind of slightly more skeptical. Although still enjoying it, I think, right?
I am still enjoying it. But like, I feel like, if you want to pick it apart, there's a lot that you can pick at, and certainly for me, it's been of the Marvel like Disney Plus shows, it's been the biggest sort of mixed bag of emotions for me as a viewer.
And yet I feel it's the best.
Yeah,
I think it's on a par with Hawkeye, like, definitely.
From a technical standpoint, I've said, my husband and I are the 2 worst people to ever watch anything with, film, TV, whatever, because he's a film and television editor.
Right.
I'm a creator and a writer. So he'll literally sit there and be like, they used this lens and they should have used this lens, or they, lingered too long. They should have cut here, blah, blah, whatever. And I'll be picking apart characterization or world building or whatever. So we're the 2 worst people on the planet. I know this. I own this. I admit this. I also think, and another friend of mine said, you're just salty because, nobody wanted to listen to your Moon Knight ideas. And I'm like, I
don't you love it when friends can be honest with you?
It was like 4 years ago when Sense8 came out.
Right.
I said that would be an amazing way to do Moon Knight, with all these multiple, having different actors play, having an actor play Mark, an actor play Steven, an actor play Khonshu, and everything. And a friend of mine who used to be a stuntman said that would actually be great for the stuntmen, because they would always be masked and you wouldn't have to worry about covering shots and this, that, and the next thing. And so when Sense8 came out and they had that where you would literally see multiple people in the scene sort of swapping in and out, I said that would be a great way to do Moon Knight.
Right.
So my one friend said, I'm just salty because they didn't take that idea.
Right. Wow.
Whatever.
Yeah, I would have loved to see what that looked like. So it must be kind of interesting for you, like, as sort of such a long-term fan, to see what they're actually doing.
That's why I have to think about it as an adaptation. My only thing is, when you don't know a character as a fan, when you are just a fan of the TV shows or, the Disney Plus shows or the films or whatever, that's your only inroad to that character. So your first impression of that character is whatever they are presenting to you. Whereas if you go back and you start reading, the Werewolf by Night stuff and, the original, the Don Heck stuff and things like that, you might be like, whoa, where did this come from? Whereas for people who started with the comics, it's sort of this reversal of now, like, where the hell are they going with this? I mean, we can obviously see the Lemire and Smallwood in that last episode. I mean, that's literally like straight taken out.
I think it's been there for a bit longer, actually. I think they've taken certainly inspiration in episode 3 from Lemire and Smallwood.
But this episode is like,
this episode is like frame by frame. There's I mean, well, you have like the Warren Ellis, I think it was Declan Shelby and or Warren Ellis and Greg Smallwood did stuff, and then it was Brian Wood who had written some stuff with Greg Smallwood. Like those, I'm seeing a little bit of hints of those, especially with the Mr. Knight. That's the other thing is I wasn't a huge fan of the character of Mr. Knight, but he served a purpose. Right. This iteration doesn't serve a purpose.
The only purpose it serves is to distinguish Stephen and Mark in the suits.
Yeah, that's it.
That's literally it. Yeah.
And and this is my own thing, and this is a hill I will die on, and everybody thinks I'm a nut job. But if Moon Knight's suit does not have the Ankh, there should be no gold on it.
Okay, right. I actually can see your point there.
Okay, so there should be no gold crescent moon because he is the jet and silver defender, the jet and silver avenger, and the only time that they put gold that I can remember, and I could be wrong, was when he had that Ankh that was on his chest for that short period of time.
Yes.
Otherwise, there shouldn't be any gold.
I agree.
On his, on his outfit.
There shouldn't. Yeah, I mean, because if we're gonna get picky, that is the aesthetic.
Picky.
Yeah, get picky. I love it.
That's a hill I'm gonna die on. Because a friend of mine sent me, who's also a huge Moon Knight fan, sent me a screenshot, texted me and said, "Hey, I got this pin and it's the gold crescent moon." And I was like, I do not abide the gold.
Excellent.
He's like, oh my God.
You wouldn't even give him an great pin or anything like that. Oh my God.
I would buy the pin and I would spray paint it.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, like complete agreement. It is the little details sometimes, because it'll just whatever. It'll just pull you out of it. I mean, she's thinking about it. She shouldn't be thinking about it. It's like it should all just,
I don't mind the mummy wrappings on the arm. I don't get the like Sailor Moon summon the suit thing.
That is weird.
That's very weird to me.
Yes. But I mean, because correct me if I'm wrong. That has never been like a powered suit. Like
no. Stephen would dive into the pool on the roof, and there would be a tunnel that he would then swim, and he would come up into the hot tub in his room that Marlene was usually there waiting.
Right.
And sometimes he would come up and she would say, "Hi, Stephen," and it's not Stephen. And then in the middle of getting, back to, undressed or whatever, he would then return to Stephen. And then, that kind of thing.
Right. So. But, the idea that the suit contains, because I think there is at some point or other, like an iteration where he did gain like sort of physical strength powers and stuff like that, but then they kind of retconned it. But as far as the suit being the power, that's never been the case. It's just a suit.
There was one iteration. I think it might have been part of Werewolf by Night. It might not have, but this idea of when the moon is a new moon, he doesn't really have powers. He's a strong, capable person. But when it's a full moon, he's a little more enhanced, not like, She-Hulk or anything, but he's more enhanced, more durable kind of thing.
Draws strength from the full moon.
And then I know that recently in an Avengers run, he can like do something with like moon rocks or something like that. Okay. Like there was something that I was reading because I didn't read the Jason Aaron written Avengers run recently, but the whole Fist of Khonshu thing that was going through that, and I think he becomes Phoenix at the end of that, where he like can wield Thor's hammer because Uru is basically a moon rock and he can like manipulate the moon in some way. And I was like, that's kind of a stretch.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, but maybe, because I didn't read that storyline either, but
I think it was like 2019 or something.
yeah,
2020, yeah.
I know the gist of what happens in it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, maybe like, Khonshu empowers him to do so. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, so as of right now, he, with Khonshu imprisoned, he's currently suitless.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if they will just like return Khonshu and that gives him the power of the suit again, or if they'll go with like a vigilante suit in the meantime that's just a
kind of like Spider-Man where he's got like the hoodie kind of thing. Yeah,
right, something like that. Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
like I mean, I've got to say for this episode, I absolutely loved this episode. Like I think it just gets better and better every week for me. So I realise obviously I'm outnumbered this week. So
no, look,
I'm gonna.
Everyone is entitled to their opinions. Everyone is.
Yeah,
that's the problem is when people start crapping on you for saying you like something or you don't like something. No, you can like it. I'm glad you like it.
But the thing I'm interested in, I mean, one, I think this episode moved the furthest into horror.
Yeah,
because those horrific kind of
that whole scene with the mummy creature,
at the temple,
are those supposed to be mummies or priests that were killed
I think
to
they're
serve the pharaoh?
Priests. I think they're the priests that are there to kind of protect.
Is like protect the pharaoh in the afterlife, something like that. Okay,
which I thought was a wonderful conceit because in a way. For one thing, I feel that you could make a stretch and go, okay, that every time we switch personalities, you are effectively killing or putting to sleep the other part of the personality or the other personality. And the thing that comes out is the protector. And I feel that was a kind of nice through line. I understand it's a bit of a stretch, but I felt for me that was a kind of nice connection back to the mythology, or the wider Egyptian mythology, which is the stuff I'm finding really fascinating about the series.
Don't talk to me, man. I've watched so many like opening the Saqqara tomb and like the History Channel in my blood.
That's the journey I want to go on next. That's the stuff I want to look at next. And
all the Nat Geo stuff is on Disney Plus. So.
Yeah. I'm kind of really keen to start diving into it as soon as I've got a bit more kind of space and time, really. But I also absolutely loved the kind of, if you want to kind of make an easy connection and go Indiana Jones. I loved that element this week. I thought that was incredibly well handled. And it was
a little Dr. Livingston moment, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, Alexander the Great and all stuff. And they're just really kind of throwing it at the wall and really kind of going for it. And I absolutely loved it because, when you're dealing with superheroes and especially in Marvel now, you're dealing with gods for the most part. And I feel they're kind of making that intriguing. And this is something, sorry, I've already bored Liz with this on a few podcasts, but now it's your turn, Erica. Feel free to drop off to sleep anytime you like. But
I'm listening.
I think we are heading into a more spiritual Marvel universe, MCU. I think it's kind of laying the groundwork with things like Eternals, whether or not those things work, and I don't always think they do, but I think we're laying the groundwork for a more kind of supernatural, spiritual MCU, which I'm kind of like, yeah, bring it on.
Well, see, I mean, that's one of the big things that just any type of storytelling, it's idea versus execution.
Right.
And the idea of having, this, bringing X, Y, and Z to the Marvel Universe is one thing. But one of the things that I find difficult about, about shows that go on for a million seasons and about things like the Marvel universe with all the synchronicity is that you end up folding in on yourself.
Okay, yeah.
And when you fold in
fair.
on yourself, you end up sort of trampling on the rules that you had originally set. And that's why, like, I don't like TV shows that go on for like 30 seasons. I mean, something like Law and Order, it's in the real world, you can't, mess with physics that way, kind of thing. But like, a lot of like the show Supernatural. I thought Supernatural was a great show, and then I stopped watching after season 6 because it literally was just breaking the rules that they had already established. And I think that one of the big problems with the MCU being as big as it is it's now they're going to start breaking the rules that they've already established. And it's, to me as a storyteller, I get very nitpicky about this stuff, and I know, and it's my own stupidity, but I think that's when it's just kind of like, then what's the point with anything,
Right. I think with the MCU, like, I mean, I imagine you've seen like Spider-Man, what they're doing with Doctor Strange and all that stuff. So
I actually haven't seen No Way Home just yet.
Okay, all right, then I won't
but
say
I
anything,
know, but I know what they're
right.
doing.
Okay, right. So in a way, it's like they've kind of rewritten the rules at this point, which I feel like when you're based, when all this stuff is based in comics, there is a certain like amount of just like, well, you know what, we'll just write ourselves out of that, which is it seems to work with comics. So I hope it works with the films. But I do completely agree with what you're saying in terms of like, there are ways to limit yourself, by whatever you previously set up, which we see, I feel, with the Eternals and their decision to like just not get involved with human affairs, which is the same thing with the Egyptian gods. Like, well, we're just not going to get involved. So Thanos, do what you will, all that stuff. It's like, well, why didn't you get involved? It's because the MCU said they couldn't, basically because
that's what that's what the script says.
Exactly. They hadn't been written into the show yet. So so you do see little awkward clunky things like that happening already, but it's like, well, okay, I think they're all clever enough that hopefully we can write ourselves back out of it.
God's not getting involved in the affairs of man is a fairly kind of standard trope. I mean, come on.
Well, yeah,
but at the same, so you have gods that don't get involved, but then you have gods that do get involved,
right?
Sure.
So
it's contradictory, it makes for lousy protagonists in the Eternals because it's like, oh, okay, so you guys were just kind of jerks. You didn't like try and help. You just kind of sat back on your lawn chair and you watched Thanos decimate the human population,
or any other horrible thing, in human history.
Right, exactly. So it doesn't make them very likable protagonists, but
I don't know. I like the idea that perhaps there are the all-seeing, all-knowing things that know that ultimately there is a point to it all, and therefore this has to happen, and that has to happen, and that has to happen. So just let that happen.
I'm an optimistic nihilist, so. That's how I'm approaching everything these days. Misanthropic, optimistic nihilist.
I can.
We're fine then, Erica, because I'm of the opinion that the world is already ended, and in fact is just ending really, really slowly, and we're not kind of awake enough to realize it. Liz disagrees with me.
Well, I just watched. Speaking of History Channel, I just watched a thing where in 2012, which was supposed to be that whole Mayan thing, an asteroid missed us by 9 days.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
But 2025, shit's going down.
Really?
So,
oh God, no.
Yeah. So just
like.
Well, I hope not, because that's when HBO Max is supposed to launch in the UK. Like, come on, man. You just can't get a break.
No. You lost the colonies, and now this.
No HBO Max. End of the world.
And that is world ending.
But like, I just feel that like this was like the maximum episode for me. Like I absolutely loved it, and they pack so much in. I really love the pacing of it, and again, I'm happy for people to kind of disagree, but I really loved it. And there's a question I wanted to ask you guys, which is, given where we end up in the mental hospital or the institution, would you guys feel cheated? And I think you probably would, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Would you guys feel cheated if at the end it all turns out to have been inside Stephen Grant's head or Mark Spector's head?
That's
would you feel
from the one of the first trailers, there's a shot of now what we know is Mark, because Mark is in white and Stephen is in blue, where he's like smacking himself really hard in the head and almost having sort of like a manic attack.
Yeah.
And that was in one of the first trailers. And I turned to my husband, I said, I will bet money that everything is going to be in one of their heads, whether it's Mark, Stephen, Jake, whatever. We're going to end up somewhere in the institution, and it's going to be, this is all in his head. Like the who shot JR, it was all a dream kind of thing. If it happens, it happens. I mean, to me, it's a bit of a lazy writing. Watch, and I'm going to use that in my next book. Watch. Shoot myself in the foot here.
But isn't that the title of the next book? It's all in his head.
Lazy writing. But I can see it definitely happening. And if there is a character where this could happen with, this is either that or Danny Moonstar. This is a character that you could do that with.
Yeah.
Right.
They never brought Morbius in that I know of. Not Morbius, excuse me. Morpheus that I know of. Because Morpheus was in the Moon Knight with the nightmares and everything. So they never brought in Morpheus that I know of, unless that is going to be the big reveals. They'll bring in Morpheus, and this is a whole thing where he's been manipulating Mark and Stephen, and who went through, and the whole thing is in his head, but it's Morpheus who's manipulating him through his dreams.
That would be really, actually, I really like that because that would, kind of account for, like you said, that whole missing moments and like the evil Jake Lockley, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be evil Jake Lockley. It could be, as you said, like, the manipulation of Morpheus. So
not a character I know, so I'm lost there.
Morpheus was a Moon Knight character where the character wasn't sleeping, and like once you go without sleep you can go clinically insane. And so he basically went clinically insane. So he was just, and I believe it was actually Marlene's brother who was involved in helping Mark track him down, because he was basically, almost like a scarecrow potion. He was like giving these people terrors. And I think Marlene's brother Peter was a psychiatrist or psychologist who helped out Mark to track him down.
That's a super interesting theory, because like, when you look back at the trailers and everything that they kind of emphasize with Stephen in episode 1, where he's talking about how he can't sleep and how he can't differentiate between his dreams and reality. Like, that could even be what they were alluding to, which would be super interesting.
I mean, for me, it would be a kind of interesting step to take, though. And my reason for feeling that way is within the confines of the MCU and everything that's gone before, it would be interesting to have a character that only kind of exists in his own bubble.
Well, Oscar Isaac only signed a contract for this show. He didn't want to get locked in. Marvel was going to actors and having them sign 9-picture deals and things like that. And Oscar Isaac said, no, I'm only signing a contract for this show. If you want to do more with me, we'll go back after that. So before that information came out, everybody was talking about, well, they're going to do Midnight Suns because they've already shown Black Knight and Blade. So they're going to do sort of the updated version of Midnight Suns, which I think is like Psylocke, Wolverine, Magic, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, and all of them. But then when it came out that Oscar Isaac only signed for the 6 episodes, everybody was like, oh, well, maybe they won't do Midnight Suns, or if they do Midnight Suns, then they'll turn around and they'll do it without him. So It's like a back and forth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be
Yeah.
really.
But I'm kind of interested to see something from Marvel that isn't connected to the, or is connected thematically and loosely, but isn't kind of a slave to, oh, here's the post-credit stinger that's going to lead you into the next thing or something for movies or TV shows down the line. Like, and I think that is a kind of big step for them, and I thoroughly support them taking steps within the kind of narrative structure that they've imposed on everything.
I think it would be great if they did do that, in the sense, because it would show that they still have the flexibility to do that. In terms of how far that, but I'm wondering if they've already crossed the Rubicon. Like, have they gone too far to really be able to pull back? Although, like I said, if there is a character that you could do this with, it's Danny Moonstar or it's Moon Knight. If there's a character that you can have it was all a dream kind of thing, it's basically the two of them.
Right.
Because I don't know if you saw New Mutants, it was the Demon Bear. So that was the whole thing with that. So, I mean, it is a possibility that they do that. And if they do, I'm not going to feel cheated. I'll feel better if they bring Morpheus in.
Right. Right.
But everybody's saying they might bring in Mephisto or they might bring in Nightmare.
Every show.
Everybody's saying Mephisto. But a couple of people, depending on what's going on with Multiverse of Madness, a couple of people are saying, are they going to bring Nightmare in?
Right.
So instead of doing the Morpheus, which is a specific Moon Knight villain, would they then plunk in Nightmare, and then that would be also a bridge to Doctor Strange.
Right. Yeah, and interestingly, both of those trailers, emphasize the fact that, oh, I can't sleep. Which, it would be really interesting if those two things.
I hope
were
he has the
connected.
big collar. I want to see Nightmare with the big collar and the little booties with the pointy.
That would be really good.
With the pointy tips.
I certainly hope so. I mean, come on, Marvel. You know what the
we
fans
saw
want.
it in Loki.
We did.
We got to see OG Loki.
Yeah, I love, which I love.
On the outside.
Yep. Like really huge horns, like classic Loki. Didn't think I'd get to see that. Loved it. Yeah, I mean, I think they, they know they have to, sort of pander a little bit.
They want to satisfy the fans. That's what's going to satisfy me. Bring Morpheus in. That's what's going to satisfy.
They're just making it for you guys now, right?
Yes. They should. Don't you know how important we are, Paul?
Yeah, I know. Come on.
I think you were just important to me. There we go. So I mean, before we end, we got to talk about the hippo.
Tower.
Which I was really surprised to see. Which at first, listening to the voice, I did think was somehow meant to be Layla. Another form for Layla, but it isn't. She is a new character that's just kind of entered the show, and she is part of the Ennead that we saw in the last episode. So I'm kind of curious to see what they'll do with that. I mean, we've had the monsters this week. We've had the jackals, and now the hippo god. Like I'm kind of loving these weird, bizarre.
So I had to Google who the goddess was.
Oh, me too. I mean,
right, yeah. So,
watch more History Channel.
I know. So she's called Taweret. If that's how you pronounce it, I'm not sure.
Taweret. Yeah,
Taweret, and apparently she is a deity associated with childbirth and the afterlife. So
she's fertility, motherhood. She's also healing.
Right.
So that could be one of the reasons why she's there, because she could be there to try and heal Mark and Steven, maybe even to try and merge their personalities or something like that.
Which again is something we saw.
Or heal him from the gunshot.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. Because when I heard Afterlife, I was like, oh, well, does that mean, that's where we're sort of, the direction we're headed in with him. But but the healing powers, yeah, that would actually, you know.
I mean, like, I don't know if she has healing powers like Elixir, where she, like, where
Right,
she
right,
can, but she is like the goddess of, motherhood and healing and fertility and things like that. She's a very sort of like motherly, caring
right,
character.
right.
So,
Okay.
and if anything, she's like, she can sort of mother them in terms of, not necessarily healing them physically or emotionally, but being almost like this, like, big squishy shoulder to cry on.
Right, protective,
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
like
Because that
I'm
ending
really
threw me
curious
for a
to hear
loop.
it
I
again.
was, because obviously, you're already in like the trippy, like Lemire, like, sort of, is he really in the institution, or is he, is it in his head, or is it a trick of, of some, some one of the gods? But then all of a sudden that, just at the very last minute, I was like kind of just floored by, okay, I wasn't expecting that. Totally, it did.
And of course, we think it's going to be Jake locked in the other sarcophagus.
Yeah,
think that's what
probably.
they're hinting at.
Yeah. I mean, that's what everybody's saying.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's going to be lots to kind of discuss and talk about as we go into the final 2 episodes.
I know the woman who is voicing Towerette is listed as being in 4, 5, and 6. So,
right.
So we're going to see more Towerette.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. That's awesome. I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with this. Erica, before we go, I do want to just talk to you briefly. Bynes in Blood, which, as I said at the top of the show, has been a great book and certainly one I'm loving. The final issue is out next Wednesday, 27th of April.
Yes, 27th.
How are you feeling coming to the end of that series? I mean, obviously, I guess the end has been already for you. You've signed off.
Yeah, we wrote this. We wrote this. Months ago. It feels good to close it out. We are discussing whether or not we're going to go back to it and do a second arc. Right now, Anike is working on a graphic novel presentation of Carmen the opera.
Oh, amazing!
Which is like amazing. So I know that she has a lot of stuff going on. I know that Van has a lot of stuff going on too. I've got a lot of stuff going on. So we love the character and we want to go back, but we all sort of need a breather to sort of, that's the good thing and the bad thing about, being a freelancer is you're juggling a million things at once and you sort of have to, move your focus around. So we would want, if we were to go back to this character, we would want this to be a singular focus or maybe only one other thing going on, as opposed to, oh crap, what do I have to work on today kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it must be difficult. I mean, I think mini series are the way to go for comics. Like I like quite contained OGNs or minis or maxis, just something that's fairly, it doesn't mean you're committing necessarily to both for the reader and the creators that you're committing to, 5 years of coming up with stories or reading stories,
if something is popular enough that it's going to go for 5 years, great. But I mean, creatively as well, I like the opportunity and the ability to do different things. I feel that, which is another reason why I also do lettering and I do editing, because I want to be able to sort of switch gears and use different parts of my brain. And I want to be able to say, okay, this story, we're going to, this is this type of story and I'll focus on that. But now I've got something, completely different to sort of challenge myself with. I also think that if you've been on the same series for 5 years, doing something different might be kind of a harder way to switch gears. And, I kind of like the smoothness of being able to sort of bounce back and forth. Like I'm doing, a couple of holiday shorts for a very cartoonish character that's like just wildly and out of this world kind of thing. While I was, writing this, Moon Knight short, and while we were working on Bylines, which is, sort of neo-noir, kind of, crime thriller, and then I'm working on something which is like basically talking animals, so I like having these little things, these different places to go,
Right.
because it kind of makes me feel like I'm not sort of stuck in one rut or another. Also, if I get, writer's block, or if I just, don't feel like a story is going in one direction, I can move to another thing. And because it's completely different, I'm using another bit of my brain. So whatever was having trouble before gets time to sort of chill out, relax, like cool the laptop down, and then go back to it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, as with all of your projects, I'm always kind of excited to see what you've got coming. I do just have two quick sartorial related questions, which are.
I actually had to look up what that word meant.
But the t-shirts from the lead that the lead character wears in Bylines in Blood, are we any closer to ever seeing a line of those? Because I know there's been a bit of fan pressure for that, and I certainly would.
I did. I brought it up.
T-shirts with slogans
I brought it
on,
up to the VP of marketing. I'm not even kidding. I sent an email to the VP of marketing, and I said, I want a vigilant and a fac off with the anarchist A.
Yeah. And
I brought it up, and I said, you tell me what I need to do, what types of files you need, or whatever, and I will get it done. It's still pending. I would love it if we could get them. I think that they're fabulous, but it's still pending as of right now.
I would sell those on my site. I think I would actually.
I said, look, you do the fac off, and then on the back you've got a big Aftershock logo.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of logos and like outfits, we can't
see how smooth that was.
Episode.
One mind.
Nice
personalities, one mind.
Okay, I gotta take
segue.
my headphones off so I don't choke myself. But... this side.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
see
yeah.
Now, like that. Like how good
amazing.
is that? I just love it so much.
That is made the week for me.
Yeah, now I would definitely wear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
I come from the age of where you'd get a denim jacket and you'd paint the back something crazy and everything. And my mom used to do art on her own and was sort of like doing sort of freelance spot illos when we were kids. And I remember she used to always paint these beautiful things on the back of jackets. So, I mean, I had my lazy Winter Soldier jacket, which is just a denim jacket with like a silver sleeve that I painted with the star. That kind of thing. And
I have you Paul knows I have like basically the exact same. It's I made my own hoodie. I cut the I got a black hoodie, cut the sleeve off a gray hoodie, sewed it on and put the star on.
That's awesome.
It's
you
awesome.
two are going to be best buds.
I don't have a sewing machine.
I hand stitched it.
You hand stitch. See that? I start getting arthritis.
I can't sew, but like I was like, I will do it for this.
I start getting arthritis after a while. So if I'm hand stitching something for too long, I'll stop and then it'll go in the closet, and then I won't go back to it.
It's literally just the sleeve, so it was not like a lot of work at all, and I glued the star on with like fabric glue.
Okay. See, I will paint everything. Like this is acrylic paint with what's it called? Hold on. It's called textile medium. Yeah. So what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to take acrylic paint and actually make it softer to be able to be put on fabric and then washed.
Oh wow,
so
that's awesome.
This is supposed to be washable. You don't put it in the dryer, but it's supposed to be washable. I haven't washed it yet.
Right.
I'm a little nervous. Because with the Winter Soldier jacket, I would wash it and then I would go back and I would do touch-ups because it would crack.
Right.
So so I'm a little bit nervous about washing it. I don't want to wear it too many times though, because then I'm going to be like, that's gross. I need to wash it.
I mean, like denim jackets, you're usually wearing like a hoodie and stuff underneath it anyway. Yeah. So like, theoretically, you probably won't have to wash it at any time super soon.
But I did want to make sure that I had this ready and done for San Diego.
Yeah. Of
So
course.
I do have to give a shout out to my friend Donut Bob, who gave me this Moon Knight pin. See, it's opposite. It's like a mirror. So I'm like, oh, I don't know what you guys. So this Moon
I can
Knight
see it. It's
pin,
fantastic.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see
This
it.
one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Like I
this
can
way.
see
There
it.
we
Yeah.
go. This is the one that he got me at New York Comic Con a million years ago. And then that I just use as the basis for the back of the jacket.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then I just had, I have a little like crescent moon cutout that I used as, a
Wow.
stencil kind of thing. And then just, turned my
So-
my office floor. And of course I have paint spots on my office floor. My husband's like, why don't you put down a tarp? And I'm like, why don't you just go away? Don't mess up my process, man. This is my process. I get paint everywhere. It doesn't matter. It's just my process.
If anyone wants to tune in next week for more kind of crafty cosplay tips,
I am there for it. Like
No,
that is a
definitely.
good tip with the like acrylic.
Yeah, it's called textile
fabric-
medium,
Textile
and
medium.
it's literally it's 2 parts acrylic paint and 1 part this, and it's almost like of a soapy consistency when you pour it out.
Right.
It's a little bit soapy, but you got to mix it really, really well with the acrylic paint. But once you mix that really, really well, then you start painting, and you can see that it actually absorbs into the fabric, because you can start seeing the lines in the denim versus when you just use regular acrylic paint and everything's just sort of like sheeted. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm buying it.
Any craft store should have it. Yeah.
Rad.
So just quickly before we go, because we've got to kind of go. I'm sorry, Erica. You've got Bylands of Blood this week coming out, or next week rather, 27th of April. The trade is out
August.
when?
August 3rd.
And that's we'll definitely be having reviews for that on the Comic Crush, guys. So do look out for it. It's been a great book. I am an issue or 2 behind, so
It's
I'm
okay.
going to catch up this week.
Everybody's busy. I get it.
I'm an issue or 2 behind on everything. So of course, we will be back next week as we head into the final 2 episodes. The comic show should be back next week. Sorry, we've had to take a couple of weeks break just because there are other things going on. Erica, Deadliest Bouquet. Now, I didn't get a Kickstarter copy. Sorry, but are we ever gonna see this in trade form, like for regular folk like us?
I can neither confirm nor deny that Deadliest Bouquet may be coming out. So just, keep a look at previews.
Right. Okay.
Well, I'll be very excited to see
it
if it does.
I'm really excited to see it.
That's all I can say.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
I might be painting a jacket for that one too.
Excellent. All right. I'll look up for that too.
We're going to have, I'll put the link for the interview we did with Erica. Was it last year? I've completely
It
lost
was last year because it was just before the
year.
Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter went May to June last year. And
And
I
yet-
went through I made it through like a third of it before I started just talking about cheeseburgers.
That's actually, yeah. The interview became a
We talked about Five Guys. we
yeah,
talked
Five
about
Guys
everything.
cheeseburgers,
All the cheeseburgers.
Singles, the movie, which we both love.
Love that movie.
Mhm.
I think if you ever get back to the UK, we'll arrange and we'll have like a singles party. We'll sit and watch.
I'm hoping someday to get back to the UK as soon as humanly possible, because I have family in the UK, so I would go often to visit family. So I would love to go back. This year it's probably not going to happen, but possibly next year, with luck.
I'm
Right,
there.
yeah.
If you want to
Singles and
do
cheeseburgers.
cheeseburgers and singles, then I'd be honored for an invite, and
We'll see. I'm thinking maybe Thought Bubble next year, so we'll see.
Sweet, cool,
Awesome.
that's fantastic. Erica, thank you so much for doing
Thank
this.
you for having me.
Love your work as always. I'm really looking forward to your contribution to the Moon Knight mythos, which I will be getting, day of release, and
we'll talk about it on the
sure
comic
there's-
show, of
yes,
course.
we will definitely talk about it on the comic show. So, Erica, thank you so much for joining us this week. Liz, you know, you guys have really elevated it this week. It's been I'm what? Why are you
Well, we
laughing
did
at me?
deep-
I'm trying to be
deep
sincere.
Deep dives.
I never
into-
get girls on the show with me, so you know it's nice to
and we
have
do
some
like the
female
real
energy.
deep dives on like 70s comics. So
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So there you go.
But I've really enjoyed it, and as always, I feel like I've learned something this week. So I thank you for coming on and doing that. It's been great to have you both on, and I look forward, Liz, to seeing you next week for more Moon Knight and the comic show. Erica, hopefully to see you again, maybe for the trade for Bylines and Blood. We can get you and Van and EK on. I would love that. But yeah, really excited to talk to you as always. Thank you very much. Go get a cheeseburger. I'm going to go have my dinner. Liz is going to go vape.
oh my God.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll
Lots of
catch you
fun.
next time.